We're live.
We are. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good
Welcome
afternoon.
to our 1013 webinar book reviews. I am David. I have lived in Milan for a year and a half, and I am from South London in the UK.
And my name is Pearl, and I am from Florida in the United States, and I have also lived in Milan for a year and a half. Yeah. We are
both, a really happy coincidence that we moved here at the same time together.
It's meant to be. We're both teachers from one of the Milano schools. Hi, Alessandra. Welcome back. Nice to have you again.
Yeah, it's nice to see some of the same people coming back for these webinars. It's nice.
Yeah, hi, Julia.
Julia again. Hey.
Hey. Repeat. We love seeing students. Thank you for coming back. Happy Father's Day to anyone who is watching that is a father. Yeah, even though in America and in England, Father's Day is on a Sunday in June. How are we? We are surviving.
Just about surviving, yes. Thank you for asking, Alessandra. How are you? I hope you guys are well.
How are you guys? Write in the comment. How are you guys? Hi, Clara. I remember you're from Parma. I remember this time.
Which you got wrong last time.
I was close. We're happy to see all of you. Hope you guys are well. Tell us how you are in the chat. We are bored still. We are bored.
Oh, maybe that could be our next mini video of home activities.
Yeah, we need to do
like what to do at home. Anyway, yeah. Tell us, guys, how you have been entertaining yourselves in this quarantine.
We're okay. Only week two. It's week 3? No, it's week 2.
Week 4
of the quarantine.
Yeah, school's been closed for 4 weeks now.
We weren't in quarantine the first week. School was just closed.
Oh yeah. I was in the UK, definitely not in quarantine.
No, I think it is. Sorry if you can't see me. I'm looking at the calendar.
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay, good. No, we're in week 2. Week 2.
Okay, week 2 of quarantine.
Week 2 of the quarantine. Still holding strong.
Everyone's going crazy in the UK, posting on Instagram like, oh, day 4, what do I do? Oh, it's terrible. I'm like, can you calm down?
America. People are starting to take it seriously in America now, finally.
Good, Julia. I'm glad you are fine. I'm glad you're fine.
We're still healthy. All right. I'm fed up with this quarantine. The spring has arrived and the sun is spreading in my bedroom. I would like to go out, but I think at the end of the quarantine. I am fed up with this quarantine too. In spring, it is
Me too.
outside.
Yeah, it's really nice outside. So I didn't hear that.
It's very warm today. It's hot.
Yeah, I saw it was like 21 degrees at one point. It was crazy.
Wonderful. And I think you're right, Clara. I did read that the quarantine will be postponed after the 3rd of April. I'm not surprised.
Postponed? Would we say postponed or extended?
The end of the quarantine has been postponed.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. The end of the quarantine. I didn't read that part.
The quarantine has been postponed, but the quarantine has been extended.
Yeah. Alessandra, I worked at home and now I'm happy to study English with you. Awesome. I'm glad that we're getting these nice comments. Everyone's happy to see us.
You love having lessons with us. It makes the webinar so much better and so much easier to do.
Yeah, definitely. It makes us want to do it much more as well, of course, because we are stuck at home.
You guys talk to us. We love students who talk to us.
Definitely. So yeah, thanks guys.
And in actual lessons too.
100%. Cool. So today we are doing book reviews. So I hope all of you guys are good readers or avid readers, you could say, because we've got a lot to talk about. So in here we have talking about book preferences, describing language to describe literature, and writing a book review. So perhaps you could do this as a task for yourselves to keep yourselves busy this afternoon, this evening, over the weekend, writing a book review in English. Could be good fun.
Have you been reading books during this quarantine, David?
I had a target of reading books, but I haven't actually started yet.
Hi, Luca. Welcome. Welcome back. I think you had a lesson with us already.
Yeah, we've seen Luca before.
Yes, good. English classes are helpful to overcome the situation, to overcome, Clara, overcome the situation. But yes, I have bought books and I haven't started them yet.
Yeah, I've got some books here on my shelf, which, this one I have had since the summer, and I still haven't read it. So I probably should start reading that.
You have so much time, yet find something else to do.
Yeah, cool. So let's get started then. Yeah, first question. What's your favorite type of book and why? So me and Pearl will answer this question together while you guys are writing in the chat, and then we can...
What are the genres of books? Genres.
Oh yeah, perfect. We need to talk about genres first, types of books.
Yeah. What are some genres of books? Sometimes they're the same in movies too, but they're a little different.
Yeah, sometimes.
My favorite type of book. I like a variety of books.
Yeah, I kind of like adventure, kind of dystopian.
I have mixed feelings about dystopian.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. I think I could read it, but there's nothing that if I saw one, I would think, yes, I want to read this book. You know, it's not really something I reach for.
No, I understand. It's not like an excitement moment. Fair enough.
But the movies are great though that come from dystopian novels.
Yeah.
Apparently. 100%. Julia says thriller. Yes, thriller ones or essay. Like, yeah, essays could be one. I don't read any essays. I haven't read many thriller books.
No, neither. I think I would like them, but I very much go on recommendations with books.
Yeah, me too. I'd like to read very light books, like very heavy, dark books. I don't like to read so much because it affects my mood, and I don't want to be in a dark, sad mood. So I like to read happy, funny books. They're very light.
I think that's the difference with films and books, is that a film, once it's finished, your mood can change and you can carry on with life. But because a book, you tend to read it over a couple of days, a couple of weeks, it can kind of carry on that mood each time you pick it up and put it down.
Good. All right, guys, we're just waiting for you guys to write in the chat. What other book genres are there? So there's thrillers, dystopian, dystopian. That's what I didn't like so much, reading the end of the Harry Potter books. It got very dark.
Yeah, they did get quite dark at the end.
And I read them and I enjoyed them, but they're not my favorite books out of the series. They're very dark.
Fair enough. What's your favorite Harry Potter book then?
The third one.
Oh, I did really like that one when I was young.
That was my favorite one. Favorite movie and favorite book. I like reading philosophical books, especially Oriental philosophy.
Interesting.
I like novel, art books, and we don't use pink books in English, and we don't use yellow books either. So in English, we would say thriller for yellow books, thriller or crime. In pink book, I think in English, we would say romance.
Maybe. I mean, I've not heard the name pink books before.
Pink once or twice, but I can't remember. But I think pink in English, we would say romance if a pink book is about romance. I'm not sure. But we don't really use colors to describe book or movie genres in English.
No.
Very interesting though, that you do in Italian. Yes, romance.
Perfect. Yeah, it'd be romance. Now I'm reading books of new Italian writer. Most of all are noir. Dark.
Ooh, dark.
Ooh, interesting.
Pink is used to, yes.
So here for fiction, we have romance novels, crime fiction, fantasy, the classics, sci-fi, horror, historical fiction or spy thriller? Julia, probably I like thriller books because I'm pretty lazy and I need a strong motivation to keep reading. They are so exciting and you can't wait to read the next chapter. That's always the sign of a good book.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe I need to read books that are more exciting.
Me too, maybe, because if a book doesn't capture me in the first 10 pages, then I don't ever read it.
I was like,
yeah.
I was going to like maybe a chapter, like one chapter.
Nope. Sometimes it's a case of like half an hour. If it takes me a long time to read the first couple of pages, I'm like, mm-mm.
Now I'm trying to read. Oh my God, what a complete. Oh, it's full of Irish words. We can't even help you with that, Clara. We don't know any Irish words.
Oh, no.
But good for you for reading English books, because I'm sure that book is mostly English.
Yeah.
Historical fiction books are very interesting. They are very interesting. I like fiction. I tend to like fiction more than the other genre, which is nonfiction.
Perfect. Yeah, here we've got nonfiction. We've got historical books, philosophy, science, arts, archaeology, biographies, autobiographies, and travel writing. I never read nonfiction. Never. I've got one autobiography here, which is really good, but other than that, no.
I've read Tina Fey. She is a comedian in America. I read her book. It was very funny because she's a comedian. So she wrote a book and I read it. It was very funny. I really enjoyed it. So I think that's the closest like autobiography I've read.
Oh, have you read The Kite Runner?
The Kite Runner? Wait, kite or pipe?
Kite, as in the thing you fly in the sky.
I haven't read it. I've heard very good things about it.
Really good. I'd recommend it.
I have 3 books. I have bought 3 new books and they have been sitting on my desk for 2 weeks now.
Get reading. I've got at least 3 books that I need to read.
Good. What is a sci-fi novel? A sci-fi novel, I think maybe like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy would be like kind of sci-fi novels, like science fiction, like something not real, like maybe like genetic testing or like genetic testing, like robots in the future, maybe kind of.
Yeah.
I think it would be like a sci-fi novel. I haven't read it.
Anything kind of futuristic, out of this world, fiction, science-based fiction novel. Do you know who invented the genre of science fiction, though?
Stephen Hawking.
No, before him.
Oh.
Stephen Hawking.
I don't know. When you said science, it's the first person I think of. Who invented science fiction? Bill Nye.
Mary Shelley.
Oh, the author of Frankenstein?
Yeah, Frankenstein is supposed to be, or believed to be, the first science fiction novel.
You know, I've read Frankenstein and I really enjoyed it. The monster, it's not really, Frankenstein is the doctor.
Yes.
Not the monster. Oh, I didn't know that. Mary Shelley. I did enjoy that novel. I read it when I was in high school.
I was supposed to read it at not high school, college, but I never did. Read it.
Right.
Terrible student.
The best writing. Let's look at this quotation. The best moments in reading are when you come across something, a thought, a feeling, a way of looking at things, which you had thought special and particular to you, and now here it is set down by someone else, a person you have never met, someone who is long dead. And it is as if a hand has come out and taken yours, by Alan Bennett, The History Boys. What a wonderful quote.
A really good quote.
What does
I've never read The History Boys, but it's meant to be very good.
Good. For you, what makes a book a good read? What makes a book exceptional? Have you ever read a book which made you feel that a hand has come out and taken yours? So in the chat, guys, in your opinion, what makes a book a good read or a really good book? What makes a book a good read? I think, well, obviously, with Maria said, something that gives you a strong motivation to keep reading, I think is considered a good
definitely.
read.
I think the idea of really developed characters.
Complex characters, yes.
Yeah. Is what makes a good read.
What else? I think of all the. I mean, I've read a lot of books, but not so many have stayed in my mind.
No.
Yeah, and some of the books I read, I forgot what happened, so I should probably reread them.
I like that because then even if you know it's a good book, it's like reading it again for the first time.
I don't know. That makes sense.
There is one book I want to reread again, but I don't know if it would be as good the second time, and it was so good the first time.
What book?
I think Call Me By Your Name.
Oh yeah, that's right. There's a sequel. Right?
There is a sequel. I bought it and I accidentally left it in London.
Lucas says a good book must. I don't know if you want to say involve, Luca, or evolve.
Yeah, careful with that one. Either evolve with no N, evolve, or involve, which is I-N.
But either way, yes, it should evolve you, and maybe it does involve you. So both are good qualities to have if you meant both. Clara, I think that a good book is one that makes you involved. Yes. Good. Perfect. And involved. There you go. I think it
depends on the writer, on what he really wants to express through writing.
Yeah, some writers are very good. I don't like books where there are slow parts and it gets it's like a lag and it gets really boring and you have to push yourself to get to another exciting part.
Yeah, sometimes a book is like, when it does that, it's like, oh, why am I still reading? The author should be able to catch your attention, of course. Definitely, like even in the slow parts, because I read 1984 by George Orwell.
I hated that book.
It was very slow.
It's a very slow book. I hated 1984.
Nothing happens until you realize everything has already happened.
It's terrible. Even the movie was boring. I think a good read depends on how it is written. The author should be able to catch your attention in a deep way. Yes, I agree. In a deep way. Yes. What is your favorite book? Because usually your favorite book is one that makes you feel like a hand has come out and taken yours.
Yeah, so guys, what's your favorite book?
What is your favorite book in general? If you have a favorite Italian book or a favorite English book, tell us both.
Yeah.
I only have a favorite English book. But I did buy, you were there when we were in Sicily. I bought that Pinocchio book in Italian, like old Italian. I still haven't read it.
No, I can imagine.
But it's like a noir Pinocchio, like the dark side of Pinocchio. And I still haven't read it. It's sitting on my desk. So
it's like a Brothers Grimm version. Yeah. Because the original fairy tales were all very dark.
Yes, Clara. Yeah, exactly. When there are a lot of descriptive parts and no movement, the book becomes boring. Yes, exactly. I'm glad you understand, Clara. We are on the same page. So funny.
Good book reference.
Yeah, Luca. Slowest is Marcel Proust. I haven't read a book by him. Maybe.
I will avoid that book then if it's very slow.
Good. So right now, everyone is telling us what their favorite book is. Favorite book in English or Italian? What's your favorite book, David?
Mine is. It's very difficult. Either if I can include a whole series, Harry Potter.
That's my favorite series.
If it has to be an individual book, Call Me By Your Name. Because that was.
But the ending's so sad. Yeah. Spoiler alert.
No, it's clear that the book's going to have a sad ending from page 1. You know it's going to be sad.
The Girl on the Train is one. Yeah, that's a very Gillian Flynn, I think. No, she didn't write that one. She wrote Gone Girl. Girl on the Train is one. My favorite book is called. Huh. Wonderful.
Cool. So I have a question. In it's the best book I read recently.
Italian literature. One of my
We have a phrasal verb. Oh wait, sorry.
In Italian. You know what, Clara? I want to read Kafka on the Shore. I was looking for it in English on the books in the bookstore, but I couldn't find it. But I did read Norwegian Wood by Murakami. He's a very beautiful writer, but sometimes his writing it's very descriptive, it's very beautiful. But the book, the topics he talks about in Norwegian Wood is very depressing, and I was like, oh, this is kind of sad. But it was beautifully written.
Okay, what is Kafka on the Shore? I've never heard of it. I mean, I've heard of it, but I don't know what it's about.
Murakami, Murakami, and he's a Japanese writer. He writes a very beautiful book. This book, Kafka on the Shore, I believe, is more whimsical. It has talking creatures. It's about two stories, two people and their stories combining. It's very good reviews.
Okay.
Norwegian Wood is beautiful, but the ending is it's sad. It's a very sad topic, Norwegian Wood. I liked it. Norwegian Wood was a very easy read. But I would prefer something a little bit lighter because Murakami usually writes about sad, very difficult topics sometimes.
Okay, fair enough. I have a question about the quote, though. There is a phrasal verb in there, and I want to understand the definition of this phrasal verb. To set down. To set down.
Oh, it looks different.
It does. I'm going to change
that. Set down mean?
There we go.
Oh, that looked better before. I don't know what you did. But
you prefer this one?
It takes less space. How did you do that?
On the side where it says brand. Yeah, in the quote, it says, a thought, a feeling, a way of looking at things which you thought special and particular to you, and now here it is set down by someone else. Set down.
You didn't even ask what my favorite book is.
Oh, I'm sorry, Pearl. What's your favorite book? While they're answering my question, what is your favorite book? Tell us.
This is The Hobbit.
The Hobbit?
I love The Hobbit.
I've never read it. Why is it so good?
You know, because when I was younger, I went through this phase where I just loved Lord of the Rings. But Lord of the Rings is a difficult read. It's a very difficult read, the trilogy, because there are a lot of characters and a lot of political undertones. It took me a long time, like a 14-year-old, to read Lord of the Rings. But when I read The Hobbit, it was so much better, and I like the characters more. So when I read it now, it just brings me back to that time. And I could read it in a weekend or a day. It's a really fast read, but very light. And I like The Hobbit a lot. So I like fantasy.
Okay, fair enough.
It's a really fun book. Even the movie is the end of the movie is different from the books. I'm trying to point that out. There's no love story in The Hobbit, by the way.
Did you like the films? Because I found it interesting they made 3 films from one book.
I liked the beginning, the first and the second film. The third one, they really stretched it out. But because in the movie, they included information or stuff from like the J.R. Tolkien's like encyclopedia of the whole trilogy, the whole world. So really, there's a lot more happening in the movies than that actually happens in the book. The book is a little bit more simplified.
Okay, interesting.
My mom has
the original first edition of Lord of the Rings.
Wow, that is impressive.
Wow, that's amazing.
You know, in the end of the Lord of the Rings in the movie is not what happens in the book. I just want to point that out.
In Lord of the Rings as well?
Yes, Peter Jackson just totally did not do the last chapter of the Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Just want to point that out in case you're wondering. Any of you have?
I have no idea what happened then. You'll have to tell me that.
Movie, it's completely different. The ending is not that happen. The ending that happens in the movie does happen, but the story doesn't stop there. So, in case you guys are wondering, the end of Lord of the Rings trilogy is not what happens in the movie. So I did ask a question.
I did ask a question.
I was like, what? This is not the ending.
Bless you. Bless you.
To set down. Does anyone know what to set down means? Sorry, back to the question. A very emotional way.
Get very heated about Lord of the Rings. But what does it mean to set down? Set down by someone else, a person you've never met. Everyone's pretty quiet, I think, perhaps because we need to give them the answer, maybe.
Yeah. So they're distracted by to write, to print, to write something, to set down.
Yeah, it's to write it, to put it down, to place something, but permanently.
Yes, Clara.
It's not like it's just perfect, similar to write down, but it's about something being permanent. It's there forever. They've created that emotion with the words that they made forever. But cool. So here are some phrases.
Ooh, I love these phrases. We have, I couldn't put it down. I was hooked. It was a page turner. It was moving or gripping. It's a bestseller based on a true story. An avid reader.
Cool. So what do these phrases mean? Some of them are kind of similar.
Some of them are very similar to each other.
But similar, but they have different sort of connotations.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't put it down. I'm trying to think.
I think actually it's set down by someone. So Clara, to set something down means to write it down, to put it down, but it has this idea of being permanent. So to set down is to permanently place or to write something. For example, when you create a new law, usually you say it's set down in law. It's put into law permanently.
I think it's more of a British phrasal verb. I don't really use it so much in English. In American. English in America. Good. I couldn't put it down. Well, that's very literal.
It is quite literal, that one. So that one is... Oh, it doesn't come up with different...
So it's so good. Alessandra, perfect. I couldn't put it down means that someone couldn't stop reading the book because it was so good. Yep.
Okay, no, it doesn't need to be used with by someone. It can just be put down in writing, put down, set down, sorry, in writing.
Luca says the first phrase means you can't stop reading. We can't stop reading. Yeah, you can't stop reading it, right?
Perfect.
It is very similar
put the book down.
I was hooked.
Yeah, very similar. It grabbed my attention, so I was hooked.
Yes. Think of when you're fishing and you have the hook that catches the fish and they can't get away.
Yeah, exactly. Clara, careful though of your past tense or your adjective of catched. It would be I was caught.
Caught.
I was caught. Yeah.
Irregular.
But yeah, you can't escape the book. You're hooked.
Mm-hmm.
It's a page turner.
A page turner. Again, all these are so similar.
They are. Means it's a very good book. You can't stop reading. Just turn the page.
In Canada, keep turning the page.
It was moving or gripping. So for me, these are two very different things, moving and gripping.
They are. If something is moving and something is gripping, they're a little different.
So what does it mean if something is gripping?
That's your hand. I feel like gripping, we have a very similar phrase. Not similar, but a phrase that encompasses this meaning. Like I was on the edge of my seat.
Definitely.
I was on the edge of my seat. No, wait, no.
Yeah, kind of. So something's gripping, it keeps your attention.
Yeah, it keeps your attention. Like usually suspense or thriller novels are very, very gripping because you want to know what's going to happen next. So you're really focused. In moving,
Moving is slightly different.
I read a
Slightly
movie.
different, actually quite different.
It is different. The last book I read was very moving.
Yeah.
They both die at the end. I was crying. I was like, it's so good.
I love that the name of the book is a spoiler.
It is, and you still want to read because you want to know why.
Yeah, I really want to read it actually. It made it sound very, very good.
I was like, this is terrible. So moving. It is moving. The last book I read was very moving.
Yeah, the last book I read as well was very moving. Yes, perfect. Alessandra, I think we gave away the answer in that one.
Usually,
Talking about the book.
any book is a moving book can be, and it's emotional, that makes you feel a strong emotion, I think. So any movie or any film that causes you to feel a strong emotion, whether it's very sad or very happy, it's a very moving book.
Yeah, it has a lasting effect on you.
So like emotional. I think emotional probably. It's like an emotional book would be a moving book.
Yeah. A bestseller. It's quite clear that's a very popular book. It's sold very well.
Bestseller.
Yeah. Based on a true story.
That's very literal. The plot is based on something that really happened.
Yeah, I think a lot of people use this to an extreme. Sometimes they change the story a lot. Like maybe Titanic, some people might say, based on a true story. Yeah, because the boat sank, but Jack and Rose weren't real.
Yeah, but based on a true story, it's a real story. Bestseller, Clara. The book has been appreciated by a lot of people, and a large amount of its copies plural have been sold. Yep, the bestseller.
Pretty
Absolutely good. And an avid reader is a person who reads many books. Yes,
Definitely.
I am not an avid reader, but I would like to be.
We have an idiom that we use in English more commonly, I think, than avid reader. Maybe not so much in American English, I don't know, but we call someone who reads a lot a bookworm.
Yes.
A bookworm.
Bookworm.
Like you crawl through all of the books like a little worm. Perfect.
Bookworm.
Perfect.
No, the hardest part for me is starting a book. Is having the motivation to start a book. But once I start it, I can usually continue reading unless someone interrupts me and I have to stop, and then it's just starting it again.
Yeah. For me, when I read a book, when I finish one, I need to leave a long time before I start the next one because my mind is still in the world of the first one.
True. I need a
So
break.
after reading Harry Potter, I didn't read anything for, I think, a couple of years. Anytime I picked up a book, I was like, it's not Harry Potter, so why am I reading? Like,
I know, I guess you're right. I haven't read, like, I think until end of last year, I didn't read a book. I hadn't read a book for years.
yeah.
No, but I've listened to audiobooks though, so I don't know if that counts.
Sure, you're still receiving the literature into your mind.
I like the feeling of having a book in my hands.
Yeah, me too. Like I have an iPad, and in the past I've read books on my iPad, but I much prefer actually holding a real book.
Oh, that's cute. In Italy, we say a library is mouth. That's cuter.
That's really nice. Much better than a bookworm. A bookworm is a bit disgusting.
It is. Library mouth. That's cuter. I like that. I like that more.
Perfect. Yeah, me too. A library's mouse. Cute. Cool. So here, discussing books. Think of a book you have read and ask each other, or we can discuss as a group, these questions. What is the genre of the book? What point of view was the work written from? from the author, from the protagonist. What was the author's style? Was it formal, informal? Did it suit the intended audience? Were ideas clearly defined? How well did these ideas develop? And what has the book accomplished? If the book was a work of fiction, think about the characters, the plot, the setting, and how they related to the theme of the book. How did the author represent his or her characters? How did they develop? What was the plot structure? Ooh, so lots of questions. A lot to talk about.
Yeah, but in the chat, tell us about a book that you read, any book you want, favorite or not. You don't have to answer all the questions, but give us a general summary, answer the questions you want from these, and tell us about the book. Maybe we will read it based on your recommendation. And me and David.
Yeah, you can try and sell the idea.
I have to get my book. Hold on. David will tell you about his book.
Okay, so the last book I read, or my favorite book, is Call Me By Your Name. It's a very popular book, so some of you may have read it. The genre, I would say, definitely a romance book. Call Me By Your Name, definite romance. Or Pink Book if you're Italian.
That's so cute.
What point of view? It was written from the point of view of the protagonist, a 17-year-old boy, Italian boy called Elio, who lived in Tuscany. It was written from his point of view about someone that he was in love with in the book. Yeah. And so the style, it was very informal because it was this guy thinking to himself. It was like an internal monologue for the whole thing, which really did suit the intended audience. And as well as that, the ideas weren't clearly defined. Everything was like him recalling a distant memory. And so you'd remember the best things, he'd remember the worst things about this one summer that he had when he was 17 years old. And so things weren't always clearly defined. That was very emotional, very informal, but very, very good.
I'm not going to talk about the last book I read because I liked it, but the book I read before I really enjoyed a lot. And I have it if you want to see.
What's that called?
It's called Cersei, like
Cersei.
Cersei, like in Game of Thrones. But this book is, I personally enjoy Greek mythology a lot. I love Greek mythology. I really enjoy it. And Cersei is a Titan, which are the daughter of a Titan, and she's a witch. And if you have read the Odyssey by Homer, she's a character in the Odyssey. But this book is written about her, her story, her life, and it's like it's fantasy, I guess. It's fantasy. It's a genre. It's a fantasy. Greek mythology is not really real. What point of the view? The book was written from Cersei's point of view. It talks about her life over her 100 years because she's a goddess. She can't die. But it talks from Cersei's point of view, and you see all the characters from the Odyssey. So Odysseus is in here, and it mentions other gods. So if you really like Greek mythology, I really think, and if you like feminism and strong women,
that sounds really good, actually.
It's really, really interesting. And because it goes in depth a lot into her, because she's not like a major character in the overall world of Greek mythology. But I think knowing her, it's a fictional story. It's very interesting. What was the author's style? Was it informal? I think it was informal-ish. It wasn't a difficult read. There weren't a lot of difficult syntaxes or complex sentence structures. But it was a nice read. Were the ideas clearly defined? Yes, because I knew exactly what she wanted to do. It was very easy to follow along this book. It's a good weekend read, I think. You can read in a weekend. What has the book accomplished? It has reaffirmed my love for Greek mythology. So I think it accomplished a lot.
That is a good accomplishment of the book.
Yeah. Lucas says, The Girl Made by Paper. Guillaume Musso. It is a gripping novel. It's a thriller. All that is informal. Oh,
Yeah,
it's a thriller.
a thriller.
What an interesting title. The Girl Made by Paper.
Would it be made by paper or made of paper?
That is an important distinction because if she was created by paper or she's made of paper.
Mm.
Oh,
So
made of
paper made.
I would think it was made of paper.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. I like that, Luca. Nice one.
What an interesting
Alessandra, Julia, Clara, any books from you guys that you can summarize in a couple of lines, short sentences for us?
I think I'm going to read another Greek mythology book.
Yeah. The book that I need to read here is, what's it called? The Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Oh, that was made into a movie.
Yeah, it's really famous. It's really popular. I did start reading it, but then I got distracted and needed to give someone a massage.
Alessandra, I read The Gift of Silence. It talks about Oriental philosophy and how you should change some point of views in your life from negative to positive. It is written in first person and it's informal. The author is a Buddhist monk. Wow. So this is what genre would you call this book, Alessandra? It's autobiography. I don't know if it talks about nonfiction for
Maybe,
sure, Alessandra.
yeah, I was thinking non-fiction, philosophical.
Philosophical. I'm trying to remember what the genres they have. Nonfiction.
It
Yeah,
had non-fiction philosophy.
it talks about the philosophy, so it's nonfiction philosophical book.
Yeah.
Clara, the book Irishman. It's a funny novel about a girl. A funny novel about a girl who speaks about her everyday life. Okay, in Ireland, I'm assuming. So it speaks about.
So it speaks about her job, her boyfriend, her family. The style is informal, and there are lots of Irish idioms. I'm hooked by it because it's very enjoyable. Cool.
Oh,
I'd be interested to know some Irish idioms.
we can
That'd be
ask
interesting.
Emer or Cahill.
Yeah, we can. We can ask our Irish teachers.
I mean, they would translate it to English, or would you want to hear it in Irish?
Ooh, I think I'd want to hear it in Irish, but then understand the translation. Because, you know, idioms usually, or not usually, sometimes have a nice rhyme or rhythm to them and that's why they've chosen that sort of, I don't know. Cool. So here, an example review of a book by George Orwell. We can read through this because there's just some nice language in here, and then we can move on afterwards, just talk about some language used in talking about book reviews. So if, guys, you wanted to write something over the weekend or just to keep yourselves entertained during this quarantine, this would be a nice structure to follow as an example review. So 1984 by George Orwell, written in 1948. So the genre was futuristic fiction. So kind of a sci-fi, perhaps, if it was futuristic.
Dystopian for sure.
Definitely dystopian. I liked 1984 even better after a second reading. I thought it was a work of genius the first time and appreciated that genius even more the second time. Orwell had a daunting task, creating a future nearly half a century away from his own time period. This future had to be its own complex, independent society, but it also had to be the natural end result of the dictatorships Orwell had witnessed firsthand. That is, the communist and socialist regimes of World War II. That's part of the horror of 1984. This future is a recognizable one, even in 2010. It's easy to see how those in control can, through manipulation and propaganda, maintain that control simply for the sake of satisfying their own hunger for power. This is both a cautionary tale and social commentary. 1984 is one of those perfect novels that not only entertains, but also forces everyone to consider the dangers associated with giving any one person or entity too much power or control over our lives.
When I read this review, it makes me want to read 1984, but having read 1984, I hated it.
You really hated it that much?
Because it was so, I read it when I was in high school. I think I was like 15 or 16. It moved really slow. The book moved too slow, and it was just terrible. I couldn't do it. It moved too slow.
Yeah, I remember when I was reading it, I was thinking nothing's happening, until it got to the very end. And then I thought, oh, but that was it. But like in a good way.
It was not a good ending. It wasn't a happy ending. They get punished and everything goes back to normal. I think I read online what happened. Not a happy ending. Alessandra, my first English book was Phantom of the Opera. Ooh.
Oh, interesting.
Very nice. If you guys, this is what I do. If you are looking for a new book to read, there is a website called goodreads.com. And that's a website where people write their reviews on any book. So you could type a title of a book in English, and you can read people's real reviews of these books, and they have the star rating. So that is how I find my books I want to read. So if you want to practice writing book reviews, you can go to goodreads.com and then write your own review about any book you want.
Oh, that's a really good idea, actually. A real good use of genuine use of the language and genuine need to write a book review. I like that. Cool. Good one.
Okay, so
in this book review, I just want to ask if there is any questions on the language or vocabulary that is used in there.
Daunting.
There's nothing that should be too difficult, but daunting was going to be my question. Yes.
Do you have any English books to suggest? I mean, that's easy to read. The books that are easy to read are not, I wouldn't recommend. Like, for example, like 50 Shades of Grey. 50 Shades of Grey is very elementary written. The English there is very simple, but it's not a book I would recommend reading. I was bored. Clara, daunting does mean challenging. Yeah, challenging or intimidating.
I've heard that 1984 had inspired the main theme of Big Brother reality, but I don't know if it's true. Yes,
it did.
It is true. It is true. Because in the book 1984, the government is called, or the regime is called Big Brother. And they watch the citizens of their country all the time, 24/7, just like the TV show Big Brother.
I mean, Alessandra, I don't want you. Thanks for the advice. It is the subject material and the message that the book is trying to portray is a very good one. It's very relevant, especially in today's world with all these like Alexa listening to our messages and always being monitored. It's a very important topic. But the book is just so slow. For me personally, I didn't enjoy it, but I know many people who did enjoy 1984. So I don't want to discourage you from reading it because it's a very good message. But I personally did not like it. And I was 16 and I have no desire to read it again.
I read it a few years ago now, in 2016, just as Donald Trump was becoming president and Brexit was sort of taking control of the UK. And so it felt very fitting, very appropriate for reading it at that time because of the political backgrounds that were going on there and the dark futures that some countries could be facing.
Claire, I would recommend if you're trying to read more English books, especially more advanced one, I would reread the books that you read in Italian, but in English, because sometimes the translation between the languages aren't exactly the same. So even like Harry Potter in English and Harry Potter in Italian, sometimes there's new information when you read it in the original language than the translation. So if you want to start to improve reading in English, I would try to reread the books that you read in Italian, but in the original language of English, because you learn more vocabulary. And sometimes it's really hard to translate between English and Italian, like I think, especially in Harry Potter or other languages. So I would try reading the original language in books to get started, because that way you understand what's happening and you won't be completely lost.
Yeah, especially knowing the story can really help you. It can help you know that you've got something right or that you've got something wrong when you're reading, and you're not constantly looking for Google Translate or to understand if something was correct.
But yeah, give it a try.
But perfect.
But if you like Greek mythology, I recommend this book. I don't think this book had a lot of difficult syntaxes or sentence structures, just difficult names of Greek gods.
Right, it's time to go. We've gone over by a couple of minutes.
Yes, that's such a wonderful focus.
Yeah, cool. But thank you very much, guys. It was good to see you all again. Have a nice evening. Have a nice weekend.
Yes.
Stay inside. Stay healthy. Stay safe.
Yeah. Stay inside. Thank you for joining us. Tomorrow, me and David will be back at 10 to 13 at 8 p.m.
Ah, perfect. We'll see you tomorrow at 8 then, guys.
Bye, guys. Have a good weekend.
Bye. Bye.